Grow, Sell, and Retire is the podcast for the lazy overachiever. B.D. Dalton, author of True Gravity and Grow, Sell, and Retire, is here to give you his 25 years of secrets, tips, and systems to take your business to the next level. This is your chance to find out what is working in sales, marketing, and running your business. If you stop learning, you stop earning. Now, here's your host, BD, with today's GSR podcast.
Hey everybody, BD Dalton here for the Grow, Sell, and Retire podcast. I am bringing you my interview with Fanny, Snaith. She is going to help talk about making our relationship with money a little bit more fun. So without further ado, my Retire, Inspire co-author, Fanny Snaith. Fanny, what got you into helping people get around this love affair or hatred of money?
Well, I suppose for all of us, it all comes from our own stories, really. Money's always been a massive factor in my life, right from when I was a small child. My mum was married and divorced 3 times by the time I was 12. Wow. And yeah, all of those marriages were to do with money, were all around money. So I was born into a wealthy family. But my dad, it was all inherited wealth, by the way. And but my dad was, we gave him the middle name of Perfectly Adequate. And he hated spending money. He just liked to sort of have it all sitting there in the bank. But my mum used to love spending money. So that was the end of that marriage. And the second marriage was all about status, really, for my mum. And it turned into being a bit sour, and it was a bit abusive. So she decided to pack my sister and I off to boarding school. And what was interesting is when we got there, whereas I always thought I'd come from a very wealthy family, we were the paupers when it came to boarding school, because my colleagues there were very wealthy.
Yes.
So that was weird. So I lived as a pauper for 3 years. And then the third marriage, my mum married her bank manager, who decided, because with the coffers were going down a bit by this point. So she decided that it would be a good idea to marry her bank manager. But he allowed himself to be blackmailed, and he gave all of our money away, apart from £76, to an East End gangster. So I was then taken out of boarding school and put into the local state school, joining the free school meals queue, where I obviously became the poor kid, but everybody looked at me as the rich kid. So I was having all these really strange messages, or just all these strange happenings around me, around money, which were sort of filtering into my psyche and into my brain. But it was at that point that I decided, when I was standing in that free school meals queue, that I was going to never be beholden to anybody ever for money as an adult, and that I was going to be a millionaire. And I started working as quickly as I could, and I just had this thing in my head that I was just going to collect money, which is what I did, basically, in a very unhealthy way, as I found out when I married my husband and we hit the 7th digit. And I looked at Neil and I said, Neil, we've done it. We've got the 7th digit. We're effectively millionaires. And he looked at me and he goes, well, it's got nothing to do with me, has it? And nothing changed. And I realized that I wasn't miserable, but it certainly didn't mean anything. And I couldn't understand why it didn't mean anything, which was then when I realized that I needed to start thinking about more than my bank balance, and that what were my emotions telling me around money. So I went off and did some work with the Money Coaching Institute in America. Okay. A fantastic lady there called Deborah Price, who focuses totally on the emotional side of money. She was a financial advisor, and she would sit in front of clients who wanted her to sort their money out. And she realized that they needed so much more than just investments. They needed emotional support, and they needed to be able to understand their money emotionally. So I trained with her for a year.
Is that where you then came up with the idea around the FinMotions?
Yeah, the FinMotions thing sort of came to me actually when I was writing the chapter for Retire, Inspire, which is the book I think we both had a chapter in, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was when it came to me, and I just suddenly thought, FinMotions, that's a good word, because that really is how it works. If you think about it, we have our finances, but we also have our emotions. And us Brits, I know you're not a Brit, but you're here in this country, surviving with the rest of us, tend to brush our emotions and feelings around money under the carpet. We don't like to talk about money. And yet we're sitting on so many beliefs around money that don't serve us. And I just think it's time for us all really to take them out and have a little look at them, work out how to be a lot happier around money, and move forward with a happy smile around our money, rather than it all just sort of being this sort of dark art that sits in the background around financial advisors, etc. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
That's really good. And so when you're dealing with it, and we talk about wealth, and so it's that same thing. It's what it does for you experience wise, and how it makes you feel. And it's not about the pound; it's what the pound does for you, or the dollar, or whatever else. It's just, people have this fascination, like you were talking about with your extra digit, the 7, the getting to the million mark, and then so what? Now I've made it, and that's in each of us, and especially I think you find this. How do you find it when it comes to women and men, and how, and you, generically, women look at it differently than men when it comes to their financial emotions? Or finmotions? How do you see it?
Well, it's interesting because I work with a lot of couples. Mm-hmm. So I see how the emotions around finances are split within a couple. And actually, it's quite interesting that when I work with a couple, it can go either way. Women, yeah, of course, historically it's been more difficult for women. The man is supposed to be the provider, etc. But women are pretty savvy, when it comes to money, and more and more and more they're thinking about it more and wanting to be more independent. It may also be, though, that I attract more independent women who want to make a go of it. But generally, I hate to categorize women and men separately, because I find that when you actually do a lot of digging at the bottom of it all, we're all pretty much the same.
Yes.
And this is the fascinating thing when it comes to professionals who I work with. I'm not a debt counsellor, so I coach people who have money, who have a healthy income, and have some money to play with. It's not my area of expertise to help people in debt management plans, etc. Yes. When you get to the bottom and sort of look right down at the bottom of the pond, we've all got the same kind of beliefs and all the same kind of feelings around money that need sorting out. I don't think they differentiate that much between men and women, in my experience.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So when you're working with people and you're trying to get them to separate themselves from their emotions or the retirement goal of money, what tools do you use, and how do you get them to try to separate themselves from that, or come to the realization that money is tied to emotions, and how to work with it? What are some?
Sure. Okay. So before I enter into any kind of practical financial management with my clients, I always go through what I call the head stuff. Mm-hmm. And I use obviously tools of my own, but I also use the tools of the Money Coaching Institute. They call it the core process. So we start with the money story. We start with our money biography, as it were. So I get them to write their money story chronologically, going through their life, and it really it's so enlightening. And those early memories of money, or what they believe to be memories of money, are so important. And actually, they don't always involve money. It can be anything. If I just say to you, what's your first memory of money? It doesn't always bring up a story about money. For instance, I've had stories of children's friends throwing bikes in the sea. And it was like, that was their first memory. It hasn't got anything to do with money. Why am I writing that? It said, because it's your first feeling of loss of something that you valued. So it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to money, but that's what came to your mind when you were writing your story. So it's listening to all of those kind of things. So we go through the money story. We look at mum and dad, or the carers they had when they were children. We look at, I'm looking for subconscious patterns. So repeated patterns over and over again. You meet people who get into debt, pay it off, get into debt, pay it off, or they might have a habit of choosing the wrong partner. They meet somebody and it all goes wrong, and then they go meet somebody that's exactly the same and it goes wrong. We have exactly the same kind of subconscious conscious patterns when it comes to money. And then I bring in the money archetypes, which are from the Money Coaching Institute, and they're basically 8 characters. Mm-hmm. Have you done much archetype work? Do you know about archetypes?
I know about archetypes, but I don't know about your archetypes. So
my archetypes are the innocent, the victim, the warrior, the martyr, the fool, the creator artist, the tyrant, and the magician. Ooh. So they're 8 fictional characters who all behave very differently around money. And the way it works is that we will have all of those characters within us. It just depends which ones are, as it were, coming out to play. Which ones are the drivers in our financial life? The ones that we would like to have be the drivers in our financial life are the warrior at the steering wheel. Yes. We'd like to have the magician in the passenger seat, and we'd like to have the creator artist in the back seat. And quite frankly, all of the others can go and sit in the boot or the trunk, as you call it. Good. But what we tend to find is that people who feel that they just want to put their head in the sand, they don't want to think about finances, they just want to find a partner who's going to look after it all for them, they will probably have the innocent that is running their financial life. The Dorothy, as I call it, that are looking for everybody else to solve their problems for them and just don't feel that they're capable of looking after their own finances. But actually, like the Dorothy on The Wizard of Oz, when she clicked her heels, all the answers were inside herself. So that's the innocent coming out to play. The victim, things will have gone wrong. Yes, they probably will have had difficult times and had unfortunate things happen to them. So I'll help them to process their pain and then find their warrior and bring their warrior out to sort of see the victim back into the boot. The martyr will be there helping everybody else rather than themselves, but will probably get resentful and, feel very disappointed about certain things around in their money life. So again, it's about trying to help them to bring their positive archetypes, their positive money types to the fore so that they can take some control and action and become empowered and confident around their money. Does that make any kind of sense?
No, it makes lots of sense. And I think that, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you go back to it. And the things that I've seen, in it's now 17 years of financial advice over here, is that we still hide as a British people behind either a stiff upper lip or a false sense of who we need to be versus grabbing the archetype that we are by the hand and saying, "Yep, let's go."
Very, very much so. And the interesting part of it is that I work with highly intelligent, professional people who can have qualifications, a list of qualifications as long as your arm, but they can still have beliefs around money that just don't serve them. If their parents had said to them consistently, "Oh, you're useless with money. We haven't, money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that," or, rich people are bad people, all sorts of beliefs that people believe, have in their psyche. It doesn't matter who you are, we can still have those beliefs. I mean, I've coached financial advisors and accountants, for instance. Mm-hmm. Just because they work with money, it doesn't make them have the right emotions around money.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And one of the other bits is, and like you said, there is that people's not hatred of money, but kind of they don't want to look out of place. So if you're going down the street and you see somebody that either has a successful business, a nice car, or dresses nice, or goes to the golf club, people don't pull them aside and say, "Wow, how did you afford all this? And could you tell me and give me a couple of tips?" They typically just say, "Oh, lucky guy, must have been born into it, must have whatever." It's like, well,
absolutely.
Sometimes they are, but usually there's a pretty good story behind either how they got to being super wealthy or how they got to being the opposite, like you were going.
Yeah.
from being a pauper at the rich school to being a pauper at the poor school. There's always a story behind the money and the person and how they got there. And we don't ask enough questions because we don't want to be prying.
No, and I think, that we also need to look at the other side of it as well, is that we make assumptions and we make judgments of people by what they're driving, what they're wearing, etc. And we reflect that upon ourselves, and we will quite often make ourselves feel worse about ourselves or feel badly about ourselves, which is such a shame. But you never know. The people that are driving around in posh cars, it might all be on the credit card. You have no idea. You can't make a judgment in this day and age where money is so easy to come by and credit is so easy to come by, that what you see is the whole story. And I think that it's time for us all to just really reflect upon that and just concentrate on ourselves and make ourselves feel happy for ourselves, within ourselves, feel wealthy in the totality and not just about our bank balance, exactly as you were saying, wealthy and fulfilled.
And that's good. And it's a hard thing for us all to do and go to introspection, because sometimes it's pretty brutal if we put all of our cards on the table, and that's the stuff we don't want to truly bring out. It's that I have to be skinnier before I can go to the gym idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Instead of just going to the gym and getting it started, biting the bullet and just going for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so is there if somebody was just to do one thing today, because I always find that it's easiest to get one person to make that first step, what's one question or one short 5-minute exercise that somebody could do to get themselves started down a healthy relationship with their emotions?
I think the first thing I would suggest is just to sit quietly for a few minutes and ask themselves what they feel about money, honestly. And if they feel any kind of sense of discomfort, allow themselves to accept that for now, but also to make an agreement with themselves that they're going to do something about it. I would love to point them towards the money quiz on my website, which is it's the money type quiz, which will give them, it's a bit of fun, but it's also a really good start to work out what your relationship with money is like.
We'll put that in the show notes, Fanny, so that we can.
Yeah, that would be great, because it's a screen of words. There's about 100 words on there. Yep. And you just have a little think about money and you tick the words that apply to you around money. And then it just goes to a little scorecard and it comes out with which archetypes are showing higher than others. And it might think, okay, and if it comes out, let's say, with a high innocent or a high fool, you can have a think and say, yeah, is that me? Yes, maybe it is. And then read the descriptions of it and then start having a little closer look about our behavior around money, how we react to money, and then start focusing on changing that by maybe working with a money coach.
That's very cool. And so now kind of some personal fun stuff. What are you reading right now? Business or fun? What's your Oh
my goodness. I've just finished The Alchemist.
Cool.
By Paulo Coelho, which is fantastic. But the one I'm listening to right now, hang on, I always get the title wrong. It's called Low Cost, High Life by Mark Homer. Do you know who Mark Homer is?
No, I've never met Mark Homer.
Mark Homer is the partner of Rob Moore, who wrote the book called Money, and they're the progressive property people.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating about this book, when I started, I thought, it's been on my book list for ages on Audible, and I hadn't listened to it, and I started listening to it. And what was fantastic was that his dad was very similar to my father. Didn't want to spend any money, earned well, but didn't want to part with his cash at all, and would sometimes spend hours trying to save a few quid which was obviously, we look at our adult lives now and just go, if it's going to save you 25 quid, just move on. And the time is more important than saving the money in that respect. But it was lovely to actually hear somebody who had a father very similar to mine. I haven't got to the end of the book yet, but he's, really motivated guy setting up his property business with Rob Moore, and obviously is now very successful. But it's interesting you asked me about books, because recently I've listened to read 5 books in succession. And I think I'm coming to the conclusion that the order that you read books in is very important. Well, it can be very beneficial along with just what you read.
Okay.
So what have I read? What did I read? The 5 books. Let me see if I can remember. It was, I read The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
Yeah, no, I've interviewed Peter, so yes, it's good.
Oh, right. Absolutely brilliant book.
It's awesome.
Then I went on to Ask and It Will Be Given, which is Esther and Jerry Hicks. Don't know if you know anything about them.
Don't know anything about them.
The Law of Attraction people. Mm-hmm. That they were behind the movie The Secret, etc., which is just interesting stuff. Yes. I did Synchro Destiny by Deepak Chopra.
Okay.
And then I did Mel Robbins' The 5-Second Rule. And then I'm a Badass at Making Money by Jen Shishiro, which I absolutely loved. and then finishing up with The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And the order of those books just was really great. I really enjoyed them. I love all these books.
The foundation and pushes you forward and building. Yeah. That's cool. Very
and
cool.
I'm planning my own book, I think. I am.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then, so what bit of tech makes your life easier or more fun or more relaxing?
What bit of tech? Well, I'm getting to grips with Active Campaign that's making my life a lot easier.
Good.
Plus, I've got a new VA who helps me use it, which is brilliant.
Even better. Make your time more efficient.
Which helps me with my time. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting at my computer all the time. I mean, that tech in itself is just amazing. I don't really know what Money Dashboard is my big one that I love.
Okay.
I suppose that's my big finance app that I love using.
Yep.
Do you know Money Dashboard?
I've just recently been on it twice, just looking at it because I was looking around at cash flow. I was lucky enough to be able to present their first ever webinar for them, which was nice. I've been a fan of Money Dashboard for many, many years. I love the things that they're doing. I love being able to see all my balances and my transactions in one place. Yes.
It's really, really helpful. I recommend it to all my clients. I recommend it to my couple clients especially, because they can have one login between them. They share the login. And what I tend to find with couples is that one side of the couple will be the active warrior when it comes to finance, and the other one will tend to sort of drift back from it. I don't tend to work with too many warriors. They don't come to me for help because obviously they're doing it. And a really good way to get the couples on the same page is by getting them to set up a Money Dashboard account where they can see all of the transactions and all of the balances in one place. But one can look at it quietly in their own time, whilst the other one can actually start using it for data and patterns and, all sorts of information. So it's a wonderful app. Very good.
I think if you're going to start writing a book, one of the other things that we've found that was good is rev.com.
Is that for
transcription?
Yes. Now I've used something different than Rev.
Ooh, cool. No, it's a transcription tool. I think that was the kind of the point. If you're going into writing a book, it's just for those times when you're in the car or you're doing something else that you're just like, I need to, instead of writing a note, voice record.
Fantastic idea. Yeah, really good idea. Yeah, good tip. Thanks. Yeah, so it's an interesting world, money coaching. I absolutely love my work. I really love my work.
Perfect. Well, and hopefully the Retire Inspire has inspired you now to write your next book or your first book. And that will be awesome. So if there was one thing that somebody's tuning into the last minute of the show and you were to give them your Fanny's number one top tip, what would your top tip be?
My top tip would be think about money as going on a financial adventure, which just puts it in the positive, first of all. So put it in a positive light rather than a negative light. And if you're going to go on an adventure, think about what you might need. And I believe you need a compass, you need a map, you need a compass. You need to be fit and you need to be motivated, and you need a destination. If you just focus on those 4 things just for 20 minutes, you can see what you've got and you might be able to see what you need. And if there are things that you need, just get out there and go and find them so that you can have the financial adventure that we all deserve.
That's awesome. Fanny Snaith, that was a very, very good Grow, Sell, and Retire. And we will put your website and everything else on the show notes. And thank you so much for your time today. It was great having you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Bart. That's been great. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks for joining us on Grow, Sell, and Retire. For more information, tools, or to book one of our team members to work with your team, business, or to speak at your event or conference, visit bartdaltonconsulting.com or email contact@bartdaltonconsulting.com. Buy the book True Gravity on Amazon. If you want to work for the rest of your life, that is your business. If you don't, that is ours.